2002 Indy Racing League is about to roar into life, and it promises to be better than ever. We're at the Homestead track for the 20th anniversary Grand Prix of Miami. Hello and welcome to our live and exclusive coverage of the opening round of the Indy Racing League season. We'll cover all 15 rounds of the series live here on Sky Sports during the year, and developments over the winter suggest this is going to be the league's best season ever. To guide us through the race, I'm joined by two of our regular Sky Sports guests, racing expert Christopher Tate and racing driver Johnny Kane, who will be in Florida himself in 2 weeks' time, driving the MG in the Sebring 12-hour sports car race. Johnny, perhaps first of all you better tell us how that drive came about.
Well, we did a test before Christmas in the Lola MG to show it to some potential customers, and thankfully one team has bought a car and was looking for a third driver. Hopefully I can help them, you know, get the grips with the car quickly and get a good result for us. Well,
best of luck as far as that's concerned with you. Congratulations to the drive, obviously, is our first thing to say here. Chris, looking back to the IRL, 6 years ago when this series started, it's hard to believe it's been going 6 years already, but 6 years ago people said it probably wouldn't last when it split away. Tony George moved it on. You were one of them.
I was one of them. I was at the US 500 the day that CART ran a race directly against the Indy 500 at Michigan in '96, and the doomsayers had them set to go. We should all be really excited about this, Keith. I mean, the IRL this year just looks stronger than ever. The winter political developments, which maybe we can talk about later on, have been fascinating. But what we've got now is some very serious professional teams, and interestingly, they've not managed to beat last year's reigning champion to the pole, Young Hornish. So between that, some new rookies, some great TV coverage and so on, it's going to be a great year for IRL here on Sky Sports Shore.
Yeah. Well, we're all glad to be back, that's for sure. Well, coming up, all the pre-season stories, of course, but first, let's remind ourselves of what the IRL is all about. Spectacular wheel-to-wheel racing.
Do you like it hot? Do you like it rough? Do you like it hot? Do you like it rough? Do you like it hot?
If you haven't broken out in a sweat yet, you're not alive. All of that left the final points table looking like this. 21-year-old Sam Hornish Jr. became the youngest ever winner of a major single-seater championship, ahead of Buddy Lazier and Scott Sharp. Consistency took Billy Boat to fourth, with veteran Eliseo Salazar just ahead of Rookie of the Year, Felipe Giafoni. Johnny, I have to say we saw some fantastic racing last year, a lot of devastation as well. What's it like to run so close, so fast for so long?
Well, I mean, it can get very tricky. You know, we've seen cars 3 and 4 wide, so, you know, the slightest movement at that, you know, proximity can have devastating results, as we've seen.
As we saw, yeah. I mean, is there any way out of it? I mean, when that starts to happen, have you got any, you're just a passenger, just sat there?
Well, I mean, sometimes it's not even your fault, you know. Someone on the inside could move on the guy that's second in, and you're maybe fourth in line, and you know, it's a bit like being on a motorway. When someone hits the brakes, the movements just get bigger and bigger as it goes along, and you know, you could be in the wall before you even know anything's going on.
Yeah, I can believe that indeed. Now then, Chris, we saw, as you know, some huge accidents there, but if my memory serves me correctly, I think the worst we had was a broken leg.
remarkably few accidents. These cars are incredibly strong, but looking at that, I'm just thinking what a good thing it is that Lola and one or two others are going to be selling cars next year, because they seem to wreck them very rapidly, don't they?
But the thing as well is, now you got that plug-in, I'm glad you managed that anyway, Christopher, but the fact of the matter is that the IRL haven't stood still on safety, have they? They've tried to move the game forward into this new groundbreaking year.
Well, let's pray that we have a safe race this afternoon. But yeah, the rules are getting stronger and stronger and better at keeping the driver well safe inside that tub.
By the look of it, I think they need it. Well, we've seen a few glimpses of what happened last year, and the top names from last year are all back for more. And there's been some major changes over the winter too. Andrew Marriott reports.
Keith, the Indy Racing League really has been making the news during the winter months, and the headlines have kept on coming. And virtually all the news has been positive, although Northern Light, the computer search engine that was last year's series sponsor, did pull the plug. But the biggest story of all was the defection of Penske Racing to the series after dominating last year's Indianapolis 500, their first ever IRL race. Even though Penske's drivers Gilles de Ferran and Helio Castroneves went on to clean up the rival Champ Car series, they have switched completely to the IRL. And if their defection is not a knockout punch to the once hugely popular kart series, then it certainly has put them on the ropes. With Champ Car double champion de Ferran and his friend and teammate, and of course fellow Brazilian, the Indy 500 winning, fence climbing Castroneves, both equipped with Dolares, there is no question the whole level of the series has been raised. And let's not forget that the pair both hone their racing skills in the British Formula 3 Championship. Other Champ Car teams have also moved across to IRL, but have tended to hedge their bets, running one car in the league and the other in Champ Car. Former Champ Car dominating team Ganassi Racing will field G-Force chassis for the Glasgow-born former motocross ace Jeff Ward, a veteran of the series, but this is his best ride so far, and it was only announced later today. Chip Ganassi will also expand the squad to 3 cars for the Indy 500. Monan Racing, meanwhile, have hired last year's IRL Rookie of the Year, Felipe Giafoni, to drive their G-Force. Giafoni has a good record in Indy Lights and last year placed 6th overall in the IRL. British team owner Nunn has been working closely with Giafoni in recent weeks and certainly knows how to set up a car for the ovals, having engineered several past Indy 500 winners. As we said, the stories have kept coming, and only last week it looked as if Al Unser Jr., former Champ Car champion and Indy 500 winner, was out of a ride. But an 11th hour deal at the well-resourced and respected Kelly Racing saw this man, 2000 champion Greg Ray, removed from the seat he thought he had for 2002, and he was replaced by Unser. Apparently Unser brought some serious funding to the team, and Ray's sponsors, it is said, didn't ink in their cheque. In any event, it's Ray out and Unser in to run alongside former champion Scott Sharp at Kelly Racing. Unser, like Britain's Dan Weldon and former Atlantic standout Buddy Rice, both tested for former Grand Prix star Eddie Cheever's team, which is now sponsored by Red Bull. But when the ex-F3 star and Jaguar F1 test driver Thomas Scheckter came along and highlighted his enormous talent, they were all out of the frame. But Cheever left it to earlier this week to confirm Scheckter as his number 2. Former Indy 500 winner Cheever continues to lead that team and rely on Nissan's Infinity engine. More of that later. Cheever himself rates fearless Buddy Lazier as one of the main contenders for the title. Also a former Indy 500 winner, Lazier remains with Hemmelgarn Racing for a 7th season, but reflecting the increased awareness of the series, is now fully sponsored by Coors Beer. Buddy's younger brother Jack should also be a top runner. He drives for Menard Racing, who first won the championship with current NASCAR star Tony Stewart, and subsequently with Greg Ray. But when the team sacked Ray mid-season last year, the younger Lazier took over the ride and showed he's a rising talent. But what of last year's champion Sam Hornish Jr.? Well, the 21-year-old is perfectly happy to stay with a tightly organised Panther Racing team, and make no mistake, he relishes competing against Penske Racing and the other newcomers, as he told us.
Last year, Pennzoil Panther Racing and myself, we had a real good year. Completed all but 7 laps. The car was really reliable. Didn't get any accidents on the track. It's going to be really hard to top that as far as coming into this year. So, we're just going to do our best coming into this year. We've got some new teams, Penske Racing, along with some other teams that are coming in and some new drivers. And the bar is going to be raised a little bit, but we expect to do that ourselves because we know we have to be a little bit better because everybody else is going to gain a little bit. So, coming in this year, it's going to be a tough year. It's going to be very exciting. We've got some new tracks that we're running at, and can't wait to get out there and get racing.
One of the other big stories has been the engines. There was no question that last year, with Britain's TWR working on the new Infinity 35A motor, that GM would have to look to their laurels. So they've raised their game, redesigned what was an Oldsmobile Aurora engine and rebadged it as a Chevrolet. They have the lion's share of the field with 22 of the engines to Infinity's 4. Engines, remember, are 3.5 litres with a rev limit strictly enforced of 10,700, and they give about 660 bhp. Next year, of course, Toyota join in, and Champ Car will, in time, adopt a similar specification. Well as Greg Ray, a few familiar faces are missing this year. The highly impressive Sarah Fisher, who finished a sensational second last year here at Homestead, hasn't been able to raise her budget yet. Mark Dismore is another talented racer who has lost his drive and gone to Shigeaki Hattori, but he has been replaced by another Japanese driver, ex-F1 and Nippon pilot Hideki Noda. And in a surprising move, Buzz Calkins, co-champion with Scott Sharp in the league's inaugural season, climbed out of his car at Homestead last week and announced, "I'm hanging up my helmet." The family Bradley racing team has yet to name a replacement. The ex-veteran F1 driver Eliseo Salazar from Chile continues with AJ Foyt's team and could still spring some surprises. He did finish 5th in the standings last year, and what's two for former NASCAR racer Anthony Lazzaro, a good bet for the rookie honours. And let's not forget another series veteran, Robbie Buell. He has pioneered the use of the Infinity power, and with big backing from the Purex washing powder people, could show everyone a clean pair of heels. It's an impressive lineup, make no mistake. After 5 years, the Indy Racing League has come of age. There's a superb season in prospect, and Penske certainly won't have it all their own way.
Well, that's what Andrew Marriott says, and he usually knows best. Chris, what about that Penske thing? I mean, coming here full time, it's got to be the biggest news, hasn't it, of the winter?
Yes, I mean, obviously because they're a great race team and have been around for 35 plus years, but most importantly because they're past champions in every series they've touched, because they've won the Indy 500 so often. They were driven by a cigarette sponsorship deal, which is only allowed to run in one series, so they had to choose. But the thing that I'm told really tipped Roger Penske across was the fact that CART kept pulling out from the circuits in which Roger Penske was involved, whereas we are now at Homestead, a circuit Roger bought from the original builder a few years back.
There's always a political undertone, isn't there? But that's the teams. Let's talk about the drivers, where they're not at all political. Castroneves and, of course, Gilles de Ferran. I was joking, of course, Chris. Known by the Americans as being street racers rather than oval racers. IRL is only on ovals. How are they going to adapt?
I really don't see it being a problem. They've both raced on ovals in CART before. Elio won the Indy 500 last year. Both very good drivers, very fast, and I think they'll be right up at the front. Quick
word about Thomas Scheckter. Shocking in qualifying for this meeting.
Yeah, so far he's been going very well. Did have a minor shunt earlier on in the week, but good things possibly come from him this year.
Indeed. Well, let's hope he takes after his dad just a little bit anyway. So that's the runners and riders. Join us after the break when we'll look at the events which comprise the IRL, including the most famous motor race of them all. Welcome back. This year's Indy Racing League has expanded to 15 events. Let's take a look at the schedule and where the races take place. The IRL season starts today at the Homestead Speedway near Miami. In 2 weeks' time, we're at Phoenix International Raceway, Arizona, a tight 1 mile oval in the desert. The teams continue their journey west for round 3 as the IRL visits the high-banked 2 mile Fontana Superspeedway in California for the first time to round out a busy March. A 4-week gap follows as the series heads back to the East Coast for round 4 at Nazareth. Round 5 is the big one, the blue-ribboned event of the series. The teams spend the whole of the month of May based at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in preparation for the Indy 500, still the most famous motor race in the world. A busy June starts under the floodlights in Texas, another high-banked track which also produces fantastic racing. Round 7 is at Pikes Peak in Colorado in the shadow of the famous hill climb venue. Richmond, Virginia is the first visit to a track in the heart of stock car racing country, and it's another race under the lights. The series heads to Kansas City at the start of July for a race on the 1.5-mile tri-oval track. Round 10 takes the teams to the home of country music, Nashville in Tennessee. Then it's up north to Michigan for the first IRL race at the super-fast 2.5-mile Super Speedway. August sees 2 races in the Midwest, the first at Kentucky, the second at St. Louis, Missouri. The penultimate round is at the 1.5-mile Chicagoland Speedway in Illinois. And the season ends back at Texas, the only track to hold 2 IRL races. Chris, a fantastic schedule, expanded over last year, and really visiting some tracks, of course, at the main originally of kart.
Well, that's right, and that's what I was just saying about Roger Penske and so on. A number of the tracks have very much changed allegiance. You know, traditionally you've had the West Coast and the Midwest owned, if you like, by Champ Car, and the South and Southeast particularly owned by NASCAR, with the IRL trying to find somewhere to go. This is what we were talking about, how the IRL has grown. Now they're right across the country, and when you look at that map with all the stars around the United States, makes you realize why motor racing in the United States is so expensive. All that traveling backwards and forwards with crews of up to 40 people per driver. It's a big budget now. It's a big, serious professional operation. Exciting series to come.
Indeed, but even though they're all ovals, Johnny, and you're familiar with some of them, they're very different tracks, aren't they? And technically quite difficult to get on. Length and banking being 2 elements that are quite tricky to work out.
Yeah, I mean, one oval is definitely not like another oval. You know, some are short, some are long, high banked. You know, varying different speeds, and slightest change in weather makes a huge difference to your setup. So, you know, very tricky races.
Okay, well, we look forward to it as we go, of course. And as we mentioned, the big race in the IRL is the Indy 500, and there'll be even more to look out for at that round, with even more of the kart teams and drivers coming back to the Brickyard this year. And the big news for British fans, of course, is that Dario Franchitti is a confirmed entry, and Johnny Herbert is still hopeful of securing a drive. Andrew Marriott reports.
Yes, a lot of big names filling extra seats for the Indianapolis 500. Team Rahal will return to Indy with Jimmy Vasser, and Jimmy's always quick around the Brickyard. He's already tested the car and he's very happy. He's looking forward to racing against all the IRL regulars. Kenny Brack, of course, very nearly won the Champ Car Series last year. He has joined Chip Ganassi, and Chip is going to run 3 cars in the Indy 500 this year, as well as Kenny. His teammate, Bruno Junqueira, the Brazilian, the ex-Formula 3000 driver. He will also race at Indy 500, and so will Tony Stewart. Tony, of course, now racing the Winston Cup in the number 20 Home Depot car. He is definitely going to race and then rush off to compete in the 600 at Charlotte. Harry Lyondike, twice the winner at Indy, he comes out of retirement with Treadway Racing to do the Indy 500, and Monon Racing, they'll enter a car for Tony Kanaan. But this is the big story. Dario Franchitti, the first Briton since Nigel Mansell 8 years ago, he is going to make his Indy 500 debut for Team Cool Green along with Paul Tracy. But Dario isn't the only Brit who will be competing in 2002. Johnny Herbert, he's been racing Audi in the ALMS, continues to do so this year, but promises us he will be at the Indy 500. He could be quick. It's going to be a great race.
Certainly is. So British participation in the Indy 500 again this year for the first time since Nigel Mansell in 1984. Although IRL regular Jeff Ward, who was born in Glasgow, has apparently never obtained an American passport. Chris, the Indy 500 really is probably the biggest race in the world. We'll say that for Formula One stalwarts, of course, that are about. Why is it so important?
Well, 2 reasons, principally. One, it's been around since before the First World War, and secondly, because the actual amphitheatre in which it happens is so massive. I mean, 350,000 people. Just to be there, whether as a fan or working the pit lane, is just an extraordinary feeling, and to be out there driving, it is a huge race.
Well, we'll go to Johnny for the driving. Now, some of these drivers come into this race just for that one race. New car, new tyre, new teams, complete and different, sometimes never even driven on this track before, to do that one race. How difficult would that be?
Well, obviously they'll all try and get some testing in before, but they're going to be up against drivers who race these cars week in, week out on various different circuits, so it's going to be very tough. But the kart guys normally do a very good job, as we've seen the last couple of years.
I was going to say, Castro Neves and Gilles de Ferran last year, of course, being two notable people there. Last year's pole position man at Indianapolis was Scott Sharp. He'll be hoping to get further than last year, though. He crashed, rather embarrassingly, at the first corner. Andrew Marriott caught up with Scott at the recent Daytona 24-hour sports car race and began by asking him about his prospects for the year ahead.
Well, we're excited, certainly. I think overall as a series, you know, with the Penske team coming and a couple other new teams joining the fray, certainly in the Delphi Kelly team, we've really gotten, I think, the right nucleus of people together, and we ended up last year quite strong, and I think if we can just put it all together, we can have a real bang-up year.
The thing about IRL is just some sensational wheel-to-wheel racing right to the flag. Sometimes three of you crossing the line inches apart, and you're usually in the middle of that.
Well, especially on those mile-and-a-halves. I really like the mile-and-a-halves, you know, the 18 and 25-degree bankings. We seem to have a good setup there, and find a way that through the pit stops or the car setup, you know, we get to the front and have a good time with it. So, and there's so many of those on the schedule, so it's obviously a good type of track to have as a strength. But you know, the series lends itself that way. There's just not a lot that you can change in the car. You know, a lot of us, you know, we're running the same tires. You can't change the wings, the motors, even though they're built by different engine builders, very often are within 10-15 horsepower of each other. So the formula is just very equal.
And with Penske running, is that going to ramp up everything?
I think it obviously does. You know, Roger comes in with a lot of, in many ways, the best of the best. He's got great drivers, great team, great budget. Yet, luckily in the IRL, there's a lot that can prevent him from finding a huge advantage with those dollars. You know, even this year there's going to be testing to be somewhat constrained. So I think it's going to make it much more equal than he's had before. You know, everyone joked last year in Cardell, he took the Reynards and completely rebuilt them into his own car, and obviously you can't really do that in the IRL.
Scott Sharp, who seems to go better on the higher bank tracks, which unfortunately for him we don't have for today's race. Let's take a look at the track facts then. The Miami Homestead Speedway is a 1.5 mile track, so 200 laps today will give us 300 miles in racing distance. The banking is fairly low, just 6 degrees in the corners, but it's a wide track, so expect plenty of side-by-side action. Now, Johnny, I've got to say, you've driven here before. What's this track like? You did mention the wind earlier on. Yeah. I've just had a report in my ear a moment ago that it's up to 40 miles an hour and turn 4 is real tricky. Yeah,
well, 40 miles an hour on an oval, that's a big problem. This circuit's actually very similar both ends, but because of the wind direction, you normally get an understeer at one end and an oversteer at the other, so very difficult.
I think right now we have to have a couple of predictions. Chris, please, very quickly.
Hornish, Cheever and one Penske in the top 3, Laurent Redon in the top 6, young Scheckter to crash.
That's as quick as you can manage, Johnny.
I'm going to go for Hornish and the 2 Penskes in the top 3.
Well, we're just a few minutes then away from the start of the 2002 IRL season. Join us after the break. I'll have my predictions then as well for the 20th anniversary Grand Prix of Miami. Welcome back. The cars are about to start their warm-up laps at Homestead, and we'll be with them when they do, and we will, of course, be live. Now then, let's talk about qualifying just a little bit here, because we have some fantastic stories. Mine, we alluded to it a little bit earlier on, but we had to move on at that particular time. Thomas Scheckter, a rookie this year, never driven in this class of cars at all, and he's third out there. He was quickest in the opening qualifying session. I mean, the man is blitzing. I mean, that is incredible.
Yeah, I mean, he was quickest earlier on in the week, had a shunt before qualifying, so he's done really very well.
He qualified in his T car to finish third.
Yes, that's a pretty big achievement to get back in a car after wrecking it and go that quickly, but possibly bodes for similar results later on.
Chris, do you want to elaborate on that slightly? Because we were having bets a little bit earlier on when he might go...
It is important. Thomas Scheckter looked as though he was going straight to Formula 1, and there are 1 or 2 problems, and he didn't go on from being a Jaguar test driver, but he's still incredibly young. He went there straight to the test in the West, got in Cheever's car, and was immediately quick, to the point in which Eddie said, I won't take Al Unser Jr., a safe-ish bet, you would have thought, or 1 or 2 other experienced men. He's gone for the young kid. He's going to coach him along. Scheckter's going to be very impressive, but I think probably the excitement of the first race, I think we may see a little bit of concrete attention in the course of the afternoon.
Well, unlike here in the studio, of course, most of the old fogies have moved over in IRL. We've still got 1 or 2 leading young lights here, as in Johnny Kane, but the fact of the matter is it's a much younger man's sport, it seems, IRL this year.
Yeah, I mean it's been becoming more professional as it's moved along, and the age of the drivers has been coming down. So you know, they get braver and more stupid the younger they get. So
well, you would know about that, wouldn't you, Johnny? Let's take a look then at the top 10 as they've qualified for today's race. Sam Hornish Jr., the youngest man ever to win a major open-wheeled formula. Sam Hornish Jr. doing brilliantly, taking the series last year, and is on pole position for the opening round here. Elio Castroneves has come up from kart. Thomas Schechter there in third place. Eddie Cheever Jr. in fourth. Jacques Lazier fifth. Gilles de Ferran, the other Penske runner there, along with Castroneves, qualifying very well in sixth place. Robbie Buell seventh. Billy Boat eighth. Ninth, Laurent Redon. And Jeff Ward, the ex-motocross champion, believe it or not, 40 years old and a biker. That's what I like to hear. So Jeff Ward, I've got as much information on Jeff Ward as any of you may want to know. 8 times a National American Supercross and motocross champion. Only sort of 10 years ago did he retire from motorcycles. Comes to one of the hardest formulas in the world to do and crosses over. I think he's one of the unsung British heroes, Chris.
An unsung British hero. Yes, he is, and it'll be great to see him now. Funnily enough, tipped by Eddie Cheever as a man who's got a real crack at the title this year.
First time he's ever had a decent drive, really.
First time he's ever had a decent drive. And talking about people first time out, mustn't forget the Frenchman, Laurent Redon. Not many Frenchmen in oval racing of any sort over many years. And Laurent, we've watched him at Le Mans over many years, and he's good, he's quick, and that's very impressive to be in the top 10 on his first race.
Now, while we were on a break, you were giving me a bit of a hard time about my non-prediction before we cleared off for a break. De Ferran, Hornish, Jacques Lazier are my three. Unlike you, I didn't say just in the top 3. I've actually put them in order.
De Ferran to win.
Gilles de Ferran to win the race. I mean, I believe it or not, Gilles de Ferran, I've watched racing from when he's Formula 4 days, and I really do rate the guy. He's very, very consistent out on the track. Now then, we are looking at live pictures from trackside, and they are rolling round for their rolling start. We're a little way to go just yet. You can see the pace car out on the track at this moment in time. 80 degrees temperature. Track is 108 degrees. That, of course, all being Fahrenheit. Wind 20 miles an hour. So the wind has dropped slightly since I got a report earlier on before we came on air. So it's still 20 miles an hour, which, Johnny Kane, is quite a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. Ovals totally dependent on weather and wind direction, so difficult conditions for today's race.
You saw the list of the rookies there, of course. Schechter topping the qualifying for the rookies at this particular point in time. Laurent Redon is the second one in 9th place. Well, as we are about to come under starters' orders, you can see the pace car out the front there at the moment. We're looking at the poleman, Sam Hornish Jr., as he rolls round. He's got a little way to go before the start. We'll see a green flag in just a moment or two, but let's cross now to the Americans.
He was just absolutely great early. And there's Elio Castroneves. He only ran a couple of times last year, but he won the big one in Indy, and very, very talented guy with Penske.
Talk about a talented guy. Here's Thomas Schechter, the son of Jody Schechter, the 1979 Formula One champion, and he is a find by Team Cheever. Eddie Cheever, who also starts in row 2, tested a number of drivers, including Al Unser Jr., and he told Al, hey, you need to get in shape. And Al went out and got himself a trainer, lost almost 30 pounds, got himself in shape, but the ride went to Thomas Schechter.
Yes, and there's Jacques Lazier. He joined Team Menard, and as soon as he joined that team, they became a factor right away.
Gilles de Ferran, the other Penske driver, Team Marlboro, finished second in Indianapolis last May. They'll be running the full IRL season this year. They will be factors to reckon with.
Yes, and there's Robbie Buell. He's another one of the Infinity drivers. We're riding along here with Jacques Lazier in the Menard car, and again, he's going to be very much a guy to be
looking back from Sam Hornish's pole car. You talked about Jacques Lazier. He joined Team Menard about halfway through the season, also won a pole in a race for him last year. Here's Al Unser Jr. He did not have a chance to test. He was signed to Kelly Racing just last week. Here's his teammate Scott Sharp. So without testing, we'll see what little Al can do.
Well, Al Unser Jr. and Scott Sharp both ran pretty good here last year.
Well, they come down. John Cicada, recording artist, will be the honorary starter, and a good jump by the pole position man. And the youngster from Defiance, Ohio, has the advantage into turn 1.
Yeah, he got a great run. You saw Thomas Schechter pull over in front of his car owner there, Eddie Cheever, to get a good run down there and fall into 3rd spot.
And you can see some of the dirt and debris on the backstretch being kicked up as they go down that straightaway into the 6-degree banking, relatively flat, but nice and wide, and we'll look some good side-by-side racing.
Yeah, Gilles de Ferran moved up there. He did a good job. Now then, Sam Hornish, though, has moved out into about an 8 or 10 car length lead.
It was no surprise that these two drivers are in the front row for the start of the race, because in preseason testing, both Castroneves and Hornish were the fastest two drivers down here on this racetrack.
And Hornish did something last year that looks like he's continuing this year. He ran higher on the racetrack than almost everybody. Most guys run right down around the bottom. He's up about 2 goods. Look at Jacques Lazier on the outside as he makes a move and moves into 3rd spot. 4th spot, I guess it is.
And then he pulls in behind one of the Team Cheever cars. And Jacques goes on by that car. So Jacques is on the move early. He was very fast last season in the few races he had for Team Menard. Put the car on the pole, also won an event for Team Menard. So this is his first full season with that Johns Manville entry.
Yes, he's a guy who always goes out there and gives 10 tenths on every lap, no matter what he's doing.
Oh, and a car up against the wall already.
That appears to be one of the Cheever cars. It is.
Eddie Cheever in the number 51 car. Eddie Cheever, the 1998 Indy 500 winner, already out of the race, and he had high hopes for this race and this season.
Man, oh man, what a tough break.
So Cheever brings out the yellow flag in the early laps as he makes, and once again, it could be a condition of the winds coming off the ocean. We're about 3 miles off the Atlantic Ocean, and these winds at one end can pick the race car up in the rear and pin the front on the other end.
Yeah, he got in there.
He got together with his teammate.
Yeah, it looked like his teammate got in under him. I'm not sure they made contact, but Schechter did wiggle just a little bit, and I think when Cheever moved out, oh yeah, boy, if they didn't make contact, they were
sure
very
looked
close.
like they made contact.
That's not a good way to start your career with your new boss.
Not when you knock your boss out of the race.
Well, he definitely got in under Cheever. He did wiggle just a second, so whether he touched or not, I don't know, but he definitely was a factor in that crash.
So we were under yellow here at Homestead Miami Speedway with the leader, Sam Hornish, Castroneves. Jacques Lazier rounds out the top 3.
Well, there you have it. Already controversy, and we've only a couple of laps in there. Well, we did actually say that Thomas Schechter might be the man that gets himself into a little bit of trouble, but in actual fact, he tripped up.
But a stylish
team boss.
Stylish start to the season to take your team boss out on a lap too, isn't it? Oh dear, oh dear.
Indeed.
But,
well, a new sponsor as well, Red Bull being in there. At least they're getting plenty of coverage, I suppose. And say that right. all negative.
Johnny will tell us it's easily done, but I mean, it didn't look as though they touched, but he just gave him a wobble and gave Eddie a fright, and it's obviously dusty on the outside of the track.
You just hit the nail on the head as far as I was concerned. We saw some of those shots. It was very, very dusty.
Yeah.
And also, he just took his air, went up the inside.
Yeah, the winds obviously brought a lot of dirt onto the circuit, so it's going to be hard for people to run around the outside.
Well, let's take another look at it. We can see the Penske car, and actually, Cheever looked like he was slowing dramatically when Schechter. I wonder whether we can blame.
I think he was already on the dirty stuff.
I was going to say, I wonder if we can blame Schechter for that, or the fact that Cheever already found himself wobbling out on the dirty stuff.
He was trying to get himself back in again. I think we'll see that. You see that he was trying to get himself back in again, and Thomas didn't know what to do.
Johnny, you're the driver. Tell us about it.
Well, I think Eddie was actually under control again at that stage. He had got a little bit wide, but he was back under control until his young teammate has committed the ultimate felony, as they would say in America.
I wonder what the American equivalent of a P45. Can't be issued this early in the 15-round series, surely, can it? Now then, Sam Hornish, though, disappeared like a scolded cat off of pole, didn't he? I mean, he's looking really calm.
Yeah, him and Neves, both obviously qualifying paces translated into the race. They're flying.
Well, we're actually checking at the moment to try and get a report from the track about there's a possibility they might have had a puncture, Cheever. That was why he found himself out there at the moment. That's the first word that's coming back. Now then, we saw De Ferran that was a bit brisk in those opening couple of laps as well, hasn't he? Got a little bit of work to do there.
Yeah, I mean, the Penske car for Neves is obviously working pretty well. I would think the cars are similar, so his car should be good too.
It looked like a gentle crash, but then you look at the side of the car and Cheever's vehicle is going to need a bit more than a polish. Let's take another look at it again. First of all, we see, I think it's De Ferran that's underneath. And maybe that's what moved, maybe that just took his air or something when De Ferran went by. But he was slowing down, it looked to me.
Schechter definitely got sideways there at that point, and just possibly nudged Eddie a little bit, but Now, there's not many soft shunts on an oval, that's for sure.
Yeah, as we said, had a bit of a wobble, but the point is exactly that what looks very dramatic has in fact been a good energy-absorbing impact. And yes, there's a whole new right side to fit, but...
wrist to be slapped by the look of it. So Thomas Scheckter then is into pit lane. Let's cross now to our American pit lane reporters, because I'm sure they're going to be in the thick of it. I can't wait to hear what this guy's got to say.
Won the 1999 Formula Opel Euro Series Championship. Now, this was in practice yesterday in turn 4.
Yeah, and you can see he pinned the front end, the back end got out, he did about a half spin, heavy damage to the right side and the gearbox on that car, and because of that he had to get into the backup car, and he qualified that car extremely well, qualified third. But you can see down there in turn number 4, probably the wind again caught him and caused that thing to pin the front end and the back end come out on it.
7 laps now complete, 7 of 200 scheduled, and we remain under yellow with Hornish leading Castro Neves, Jacques Lazier, Gilles de Ferran, Robbie Buell in 5th, 6th is Jeff Ward, 7th is Billy Boat, Radon, Treadway, and Sharp rounding out the top 10. So once again now after 7 laps, Stan Hornish, Sam won it last year, he's leading again this year.
There it is then, Hornish leads, Castro Neves in 2nd place and Jacques Lazier in 3rd place at the moment. You're looking at Hornish with Castro Neves playing Mr. Intimidator, it looks like to me. They're sitting right underneath the gearbox, and Sam Hornish, well, I wonder if he'll be intimidated. He certainly wasn't last year by anybody giving him a hard time. So as we're looking down at Sam Hornish, we're under yellow, our first. 7 laps of 200 have been done. This is a Menards car, as it says in the dashboard there, so you don't have to be smart to work that one out, I suppose. Looking up through the field, you can see the flashing lights of the pace car in front at the moment. We're going to be at least another lap before we go under green. And again, tyres cooling perhaps. A few clouds in the sky now. No risk of rain, we are told, over Miami today. It's absolutely clear, 0% of rain we were told, but it is quite hot. 80 degrees Fahrenheit at the moment, air temperature, over 110 degrees now, track temperature. And already, well, there's one person that's feeling the heat. Thomas Scheckter, having just taken out his teammate and team boss, Eddie Cheever Jr. He's going to be popular indeed. If you've just joined us, we are under yellow for the first time for the 20th anniversary race here in Miami. We are at the Homestead track. Not all of those 20 races, Chris, as you've corrected me earlier, were held here at Homestead.
That's right. I was at the first race at Homestead in '96, which was a champ car race. And of course, one of the big features of this track is that it was a champ car track and built very much for South Florida's Spanish-speaking racing driver community. And Emerson Fittipaldi redesigned it, and now with the IRL on it.
A font of all relevant knowledge, as usual, Christopher.
Yep.
Well, we're on board with Sam Hornish. That's the pace car in front. We're under a yellow still. Let's cross back to our American commentators just in case they've got an update that we're not party to here in the studio.
Scheckter apparently stalled the engine.
Yes, and this is a big problem for him. He's never...
Oh, try. Thomas Scheckter stalled the engine leaving the pits, and as we've indicated in the past, this can be a problem for a new driver in this series.
Yes, he's never made pit stops before, so it's a huge problem for him to get used to that. He came in just to check the car, to change tires, but he's going to lose almost an entire lap as the green flag is coming out this time by.
And they come by to complete lap number 10 of this 200-lap grind, and right away you see the scramble for position back down that front straightaway.
Jacques Lazier already all over Castro Neves, and Buell gets around to Ferran on the restart. Robbie Buell very, very aggressive on that restart.
And now you're riding with Scott Sharp back in 10th position down the back straightaway.
That's Rick Treadway right in front of him. Rick Treadway, of course, a rookie who does not have very much experience, but it's running extremely well down here at Miami.
Treadway, a graduate of open wheel midget competition. Buell up to the 4th position.
Yeah, Ward moving up in that red car. He's moving up too. He's of course driving for Jip Ganassi this year, so he's moving up very, very well.
Now this race is long enough though, Larry, that you can really pace yourself. It's a 300-mile event. It's nice to lead early, but it's not necessary.
No, not exactly, but Scott Sharp, he laid back there for quite a while. Now he's moved up several positions. He's kind of on the hunt right now.
Once again, Hornish is out in front. Castro Nevitz rides in second. Buell now up to third.
That's the Farron we're looking at right there. He's following Jacques Lazier, trying to move up on him. Right now, though, those first 4 or 5 cars pretty much maintaining their position.
A good ride for Robbie Buell, another Infinity power. That's the 35A Infinity engine. Infinity has won only 2 races over the past 6 seasons of the Indy Racing League, but had a very competitive qualifying effort yesterday, but they've lost one of those already in that crash with Eddie Cheever.
Well, the Infinity 35A, this was only its second race at this time last year. Miami was the second race on the schedule. They brought it out at Phoenix, so it was a very, very new engine. It proved right away it was going to be pretty fast, but they had a problem with longevity for a long time, but I believe they've solved that problem.
Hornish on lap 13, 192 miles an hour compared to his qualifying speed of 202 yesterday. That's no surprise.
Well,
backed off about 10 miles an hour.
That team has been extremely, extremely strong on this type of racetrack. Hornish likes the flat racetracks. I think he's better there than he is even on the banks of Texas and so forth.
Alceo Salazar driving number 11 for A.J. Foyt this season. Many thought that last year may have been his season, his second full season with A.J. to vie for the championship.
Yeah, and he's putting a move on Giafoni there. He got down to the inside of Giafoni, but Giafoni got on the throttle down the straightaway a little faster than Salazar did. This is the race for 12th and 13th position. Giafoni, you can see Giafoni, he wiggled getting into turn number 3. That's because the wind is blowing. It's blowing you in, and when he wiggled, he got out of the throttle, and that's exactly why Salazar was able to get around him. When he did that wiggle getting into 3 and moved the car out, and Salazar had a run on him, went on by.
Well, Salazar, as we indicated, running for A.J. Foyt again this year, but Mo Nunn is the car entered for the Hollywood entry of Giafoni. He was last year's Rookie of the Year in the Indy Racing League.
That's Castro Neves we're looking at right there, trying to run down Sam Hornish, but so far, Sam Hornish has had everything pretty much his own way. That Pennzoil Panther car really moving.
Past, I filtered him behind him, and he just came in too deep. We talked about this the whole weekend. Take your time, make sure there's room in the pass. I would be just as angry right now if he had hit somebody else on the track. It was uncalled for, stupid, and right now I'm so angry I'm beside myself.
That's Eddie Cheever. Boy, what a tough way to start a brand new racing season.
Yeah.
Well, very outspoken, great interview, great personality, but obviously very angry. A mistake.
Well, he knows what's going on, and I mean he's right. He probably would be just as mad if he'd hit somebody else. But when you take your boss out of the race, that's not a good way to start. Schechter
check the fine print of your contract.
Yeah. I'm sure there's nobody sorrier at the racetrack than he is right now. Obviously, he didn't mean to do that. So tough break.
Well, there's a black flag being issued for number 37, John DeFries, who apparently violated that blend line coming out of the pit area. John's one of our promising rookies. That has been most impressive, and that's a new team as well. That's the Todd Brayton-owned team with a Brayton-engineered engine in the race car.
Yes, and that's one of the things a rookie has to learn. You have to learn. He should have actually known that, though. I mean, they're very specific. Brian Barnhart, when he gives you the rules and regulations and what you can do and can't do, believe me, he's very specific. He leaves nothing to question. So DeFries, he messed up, and he's going to have to pay for it by going in and having a stop-and-go penalty.
Riding with Jacques Lazier, who continues to run without that that body panel.
Yeah, they'll probably wait until the first pit stop to put that in, but it certainly doesn't seem to be bothering him very much. He's still running in 4th position. He's lost only 1 spot, and but aerodynamically, it's got to hurt him down these straightaways. These are fairly long straightaways, and the corners are very, very flat and very long. So it's not really. It's got to be hurting him going down these straightaways.
Watch him work that steering wheel as he hits the corner.
Oh yeah, this is tricky. 3 is probably the trickiest. Entering into 3 is probably the trickiest place on the racetrack, and then coming off of 4.
Well, Sam Hornish there in the, another yellow, and look at that. We're just talking about Jacques Lazier. You talked about maybe a handful to hang on to because of the aerodynamics, and he is backwards on the racetrack. Cannot see if he actually made contact with the wall, but that is our second yellow of the afternoon.
Well, that's a tough break for him, and I'm sure he's upset with himself for having that happen, because I believe he did make contact. Whether he made enough contact to put him out of the race, that's another question. Oh, he's taking the steering wheel off. That's not a good sign.
So 22 laps are now complete under the second yellow of the afternoon, this time for Jacques Lazier in the Johns Manville Team Menard entry.
And once again, it appears that this is down in that same area where all the rest of the skid marks are. Now you can see heading down in to turn number 3, and it looked like Thomas Schechter's crash earlier where the back end came out, although he doesn't appear that he did hit the fence. I thought it looked like he did hit the fence, but the nose came up to the fence and it did not actually make contact.
So all the altercations in practice and now in the race have happened over entering the 4th corner. And again, we're about 3 miles off the ocean, and the wind is certainly a factor as Hornish continues to lead under yellow with 23 laps now complete. Castro-Neves rides in second, Buell, DeFer, and Ward and Radon round out the top 6.
You join us back in the studio where the Homestead Miami IRL opening round of the year is under its second yellow after Jacques Lazier found himself climbing a wall somewhat unceremoniously, but at this time, unlike Cheever, he did it all on his own. Can we go back to the Jody Scheckter situation here? There's a Freudian slip there, of course. Thomas Scheckter, who seems to be taken after his dad just a fraction. They are live pictures, actually, as I think we'll just go back to the track at this moment, gentlemen, if I can get back to Johnny Kane and Christopher Tate here in the studio in just a moment, because we're about to get back under green. Let's rejoin our commentators at trackside.
Those restarts.
That's an old sprint car move.
Oh, I guess that was
sprint car midget.
That was a very, very clever move for a guy who's extremely young in this sport. But look at Castro-Neves. He didn't bother him. He's coming right after him and down to the inside, going into 3.
And he has it. So after leading for 27 laps in the 28th go-around, Hornish relinquishes the lead to Castro-Neves. And here comes Sam back on the high side.
And Sam Hornish is one of the few guys last year that ran this outside groove and made it work. He didn't make it work right there, but he likes that outside groove, and he's still out there.
And now Castro-Neves slides back across the nose, and Sam says, all right, fine, I'll look to the inside. And goes on by.
Yeah, Castro-Neves says, hey, I'm not going to play this game this early in the going. I think I'll let you go on by if you want to lead that bad.
So on lap 29, Sam Hornish retakes the lead.
Boy, he really did a nice job. I don't know whether he got caught asleep or whether it just got his dander up, because he really went after him.
Yellow flag is out once again on the racetrack. That is the 3rd yellow of the afternoon. And look at this, Rick Treadway in number 55. Rick is a graduate of midget competition, had a couple of good rides last year, drives for the team owned in part by his dad, but heavy contact and damage on the right side.
And this was coming off of turn number 4, way farther around than most of these guys have hit the wall. But what happens in that part of the racetrack is the wind is blowing from the back straightaway towards the front straightaway, so it just pushes you out. If it catches you, if a big gust catches you and you're too close, he spun.
Well, he spun
before
early.
He got there. He spun before he got there. He spun back in the same, a little bit farther around, but in the same area really that the other 2 guys have spun here in this race.
He tried to catch it, but could not catch it, and slammed it with the right side.
Well, the good news is he's climbing out of the race car. He did make hard contact with the right side of the car.
Dave Brown and his safety crew are there to help him climb out. One more look.
Yeah, he was up high on the racetrack, and all of a sudden the back end just came around. The front end headed towards the infield. He, like you said, he tried to save it, but he got the front end back in the right direction. But he was too
Right out of racetrack.
Yeah, he just ran out of racetrack.
It looks like one, it could have been the wind, or he could have pinched it coming. It was high, and he tried to drive it down low and pinched it just a bit.
And that could be a factor. With the wind blowing like that, if you do try to pinch the race car, just turn it too hard to the left, then it's going to not end up in a good situation, as this didn't.
Well, the pits are now open. We'll look for the leaders to pit this time by. It was a good qualifying effort for Rick Treadway from Indianapolis. He started 12th in this event. And there's the dash to the pit, but there is a pit lane speed limit. And it looks like they're still racing.
Castroneves is trying all the little tricks on Hornish, trying to intimidate him a little bit. But there is a pit lane speed limit, and if they exceed that, they will be penalized. So he has to be careful if he's going to try to pull that little sneak on there. Now, Hornish, one of the knocks on Hornish last year, one of the things he did is he killed the engine a couple of times early in the season. Let's see if he gets in this. Gets out okay. Yeah.
Well, you talk about killing the engine early in the season. You can't knock him too much. He won the first 2 races of the season last year.
And in both of them, he killed the engines, but he came back and won anyway. That's how strong he was in both of those.
Well, a good pit stop this time for Sam. And that is rather a unique team. That's the Panther team that's actually owned by about 5 different businessmen. And it's very difficult for that many guys to own a team, but they've done it successfully.
They certainly have. It's a very, very strong team. Has been since they started it and will be long into this year.
And every member knows the strong points of the other members, and they do what they're best at, and everybody else leaves them alone. We'll be back with more from Miami.
So then, as Americans disappear off to a break, the Homestead Miami Speedway opening round of the IRL will be back in just a moment. As you can see, the wrecker trucks are still up high at the circuit at the moment. That was a big shunt there with Ricky Treadway, again off of turn 4, which has been a bit contentious throughout this. You can see the wrecker there just recovering Ricky's car. He was a 12th qualifier and a rookie in this year's IRL racing, of course. Turn 4, Johnny, I mean, we talked about it before we came on air, we talked about it when we were on air, and that's the 3rd car that's had problems, all on his own. It was a big slap, wasn't it, into the wall?
It was indeed. I mean, quite often that happens. You know, one corner of the car hits the wall and it just slams the side of the car into the wall, and there's really nothing you can do about your feet and legs moving.
Talk us through this, because the back goes in, but then it slaps the front against the side, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's just, you know, the force of the shunt throws the front of the car around, and no matter how hard you're on the brakes there, your legs just slap up against the side of the tub fairly hard.
Wouldn't want to slap like that, Christopher. Not at our age, anyway.
Well, exactly. It's just as well he's so young and fit, isn't it, really?
Indeed. Now then, let's talk about Castroneves, who is really taking on the role of the intimidator, isn't he? Down pit lane, he's stuck right under it in that last yellow, the second yellow that we saw. He was stuck right under Sam Hornish's gearbox to try and intimidate him while they were behind the pace car. He's really trying it on, this boy.
Yeah, that's right. Proper, as they say, professional motor racing. The Penske team doing everything there. I don't know if you also noticed that Gilles' pit crew did a rather better job there on turning around his car than they did Elio. So we'll see if he can nip back out there and do it again. But obviously, the team plan.
Here it is. Let's take a look at this. This is the intimidation again coming from Castroneves.
This is classic stuff. He's not allowed to get past him, of course, and he mustn't break the pit speed limit, and he mustn't tangle up with him in the pit lane. But he's just there saying, "Don't think you're going to go too far."
But Christopher, he got his just desserts because Gilles de Ferran got out in front of him and picked second place off of him. So Castroneves goes back to 3rd after this pit. We can see it now. Castroneves is in, so is Gilles de Ferran, but Gilles de Ferran, as Christopher has already said quite rightly, gets out, wait for it, you'll see it on the split screen now.
Whoa,
top cars, there goes Gilles de Ferran.
Quicker.
So de Ferran manages to get out in front of Castroneves, and there's a bit of gamesmanship all round here, Johnny.
Well, it's one team, but there's 2 crews, and they obviously both want to beat each other very badly. Seems like Elio's car is possibly a little bit quicker on the track at the minute, so I would think he'll probably get past Gilles pretty quickly.
Okay, well, we'll wait and see. There it is, Grand Prix of Miami, about to get back underway. Let's go back to the track for live commentary.
Right along with Jacques Lazier, who had to make that pit stop after slight contact with the wall. That drops him way back to 23rd position. Make that 22nd position now after Rick Treadway crashed. So we're under our 3rd yellow of the afternoon.
Yeah, he lost 5 laps, so he's not going to be
not a factor this afternoon.
That's right. It's a tough break for him.
But that team will be a factor throughout the season.
Right. And there is Eliseo Salazar, who's now currently in 4th position behind Ayrton Dare, Alex Barron, and Ward, who is leading the race. So that early pit stop makes him, it looks pretty good now. At the time, everybody's saying, well, why did he pit? But now, since everybody else, he pitted on about lap 26, everybody else pitted on about lap 30. So it makes it just depends on your strategy, and strategy does play a part in any kind of a race like this.
Sponsored by the Bank of Chile. Look at that color scheme. You've got some kind of a whitish silver, blue, red, and a green helmet.
Yeah, and he's not going to change that green helmet. That's his home country colors. He loves them, and he's going to keep it on there no matter what.
His third full season of driving for the legendary Texan A.J. Foyt, as you look back from the Pennzoil car.
He led this race last year, if you remember, right near the end, and almost pulled out the victory. And Hornish got around him, and then a little later, Sarah Fisher got around him, so he finished in third position.
Well, once again, 35 laps are now complete. We're showing Jeff Ward, the former national motorcycle champion, as your leader. Jeff has bounced around just a bit and did not have this ride secured until just a few weeks ago. It's rather unique. You talk about the Kelly situation with Al Unser Jr. Al did not get that ride until last week, and to get the ride, Kelly fired Greg Ray, and they just hired Ray back in about December.
Yeah, it's been kind of a crazy, silly season. It's been very, very difficult on some of these guys. Ward did not have that ride with Ganassi until just a week or so ago. A lot of these teams and their drivers came together very, very late, and because of that, not a lot of testing was able to be done by some of them, and so they'll improve greatly as the year goes along.
And some of the drivers that we would expect to see this season, of course, we mentioned Sarah Fisher earlier. When the sponsorship comes around, she'll be back on the racetrack with Walker Racing. And of course, Mark Dismore, who had been one of the first employees of Kelly Racing, was ousted when they hired Greg Ray. Then Greg was ousted in that one, so Mark is looking for a ride. Of course, Davey Hamilton, who is on the mend from serious leg injuries last season, should be back in a couple of months. And Buzz Calkins retired over the offseason, and now Bradley Motorsports is looking for a driver for that car.
Yes, and there is our leader. That's Ward, Jeff Ward, in that Ganassi-owned race car, and he's been pretty quick all day long, but he just been hanging around back there in about 4th or 5th spot.
Talking about a crossover in sporting events, sponsored by the local basketball team of the NBA, the Miami Heat. And of course, right now, Ward likes to apply some heat to the competition.
Yeah, not all bad, not all bad. And that's a good, I think a lot of that is going to happen in the future. A lot of crossovers between racing teams, other sporting events. A lot of them are starting to recognize racing for the first time as a really true sport in America.
Well, right now, the pace car, I think, has led the most laps out here this afternoon.
Well, that's not uncommon at this racetrack. Last year, there were several crashes. You can see the pace car is just pulling off, so we'll have green next time by, and we'll see with Ward leading this race and Hornish, DeFer, and Castroneves back in 7th, 8th, and 9th position, how quickly they can come up through that field and catch those guys. Ward, I think, has put himself in a bad situation if there's not a yellow fairly quick, because he's run 37 laps without a fuel stop, and I don't know how much longer he can go.
Well, Alex Barron now in 2nd position. He's been out 12 laps since his pit stop, and Ayrton Dere, who got that ride just yesterday when Donnie Beechler crashed the A.J. Foyt entry and spent the night in the hospital. He'll be released this afternoon, was complaining of some neck and back pain, but he will be released this afternoon. But Dere, the rookie of the year a couple of years ago, got that ride. He had to the right spot at the right time, and A.J. said, off of the race car.
Yeah. Alex Barron stuck in there very well. Dare on the outside in that A.J. Foyt car trying to get around Barron. Could not make that work. Now then he got a good run down the back straightaway.
That's the best battle on the racetrack as he looks to the inside. That's the battle for 2nd. And they go through that corner side by side, and he has him on the high side.
You can see Sam Hornish right now. He's catching up with those guys.
No, he didn't get him on the high side.
No, he didn't. He got out there and he got hung out, got real slick out there, and he lost 2 or 3 spots. Oh, meanwhile, Billy Boat in the Curb Agajanian car has spun. So tough break for him. They had high hopes. This is a brand new team. A lot of the same people followed, but tough break for him.
Well, we'd like to hear more about this Donnie Beechler situation from yesterday as we take a look at Billy Boat.
He's sitting there very dejected at this point. Doesn't look like he made any contact. And we're trying to get Donnie Beechler and see what he has to say about his crash yesterday.
Would say is his Harris driver. And Donnie Beechler, that was a tough break for you yesterday. What do you think finally happened to the Harris machine?
Well, I mean, we had new sticker tires on out there, and I took it 3 or 4 good practice laps, and we got pretty comfortable in 1 and 2, but it was awful windy yesterday, just like it is today, and I think I may have gotten, some air taken off of the rear wing, and it just turned me sideways, and you can't save these things too often.
You guys have had some really terrible luck since you came to Miami.
I love Miami. It's a great city, but we haven't had good luck here with the racetrack, and hopefully Ayrton and Salazar will do a good job for us today.
Well, it's good to see you back at the racetrack. And Paul, I heard the great line from the Foyt crew. They said, our luck has been so bad, our pet duck drowned.
Jack Arute from the pit area with Donnie Beechler, who we had heard would be released this afternoon, got released earlier. This is a look back to yesterday in that practice session when, as he indicated, maybe some wind taken or air taken off the rear wing, which we talked about earlier because of the prevailing winds.
Yeah, he did get out of the car all on his own, but he didn't feel very well. He had a headache and he had aches and pains, so they did end up taking him to the hospital.
Now look at this, Jacques Lazier back in the pit area.
Man, he's had all kinds of problems with that thing today. I'm sure they're not happy with what's happened to them today, but he in the pits once again, but he's already 5 laps down.
As he leaves the pit area, still under yellow. Ward leads. Again, he has yet to make the pit stop. He's gone 41 laps, and that is really at the far end of that window, that pit window for him.
Well, I would think it would be. Maybe they know something that I don't know, because with this yellow, I would think, man, he's got to come in and make a pit stop sooner or later.
Now you'll see this blend line back here as they come off this lane in the second corner, and that is Jacques Lazier, and he blends in the backstretch as Ward continues to lead a couple of youngsters, Barron and Salazar in third, with Hornish back up to fourth.
Homestead Miami Speedway, the 4th caution period is now over after Billy Boat hit the wall, and the out of sequence top 4 are Jeff Ward, Alex Barron, Eliseo Salazar and Sam Hornish, the poleman. We are riding down pit lane at the moment, so let's join back as Alonso Jr. goes in pit lane. Let's join our race commentators at trackside as they come under green.
Everybody hanging
back there.
Yeah, everybody hanging back, trying to get a run. Look at Dari. He's on the outside of Hornish. Ooh.
He got up the gray stuff. He got up the marbles.
Yes, and he did get a good run.
He made the pass.
He got a great run on Hornish, and Hornish did give him room. I wasn't sure Hornish saw him out there. That's DeFerrin right behind Hornish, who's moved up. So those guys having a heck of a battle back there. Now then Hornish goes back after Dari.
And you've got Sharp in that fray and Robbie Buell as well. Dari running a higher line. You talked about that high line that Sam ran here last year. That last lap, Sam was down low and Dari was up high.
Yeah, this time
they just flip-flopping.
Yeah, now Sam this time goes to the outside. Is he going to have enough room?
Oh, he ran out of space that time. Ran out of real estate.
Yeah, he certainly did. You could see that Dari wasn't going to get that thing turned, and he saw it same as we did, and he let off the throttle, let him go.
Looks to the inside. Through turn 4, this is the trouble spot for the entire weekend. Stays down low. Can he have a run down the straightaway? No, he can't make it.
And you can see Dari again. He did a little wiggle as he exited that corner. See what Hornish is doing here. He's entering very high. Oh, this time he goes right on the outside, but look how close he is when he goes by him. Dari
makes the pass and moves to 4th position. Dari drops to 5th. 6th is now DeFerrin. Then it's Sharp and Buell.
Dari just lifted a little bit. He already had that run on the outside. I think his original intent was to try to sneak under him coming off, but when Dari lifted a little bit, man, he just blew right on by him.
Well, we're working on lap 49. 26 of those have been under yellow, but another pass there. But I tell you what, when we're racing, we see some great competition out there.
That's exactly what Sam Hornish did last year. Coming off of turn 2, he was passing people left and right. When he had killed the engine late in the race, he fell clear back into the 5th or 6th spot, and he did exactly the same thing on the outside. Now then he goes to the inside of Alex Barron.
And he's going to make that pass. Will he take Salazar with him? No, Salazar cannot make the move. Coming off the corner, he may have some room, though.
Well, it all depends now on how quick he got back after the throttle. If he got a good run down the straightaway, he can get this position from him. But it's very, very tricky when you get inside that guy.
The last lap, Hornish was 191 miles an hour. He was the fastest driver out there that last lap, almost a half mile faster than Ward, the leader. And that last time by, he was almost 2 miles an hour faster than Jeff Ward.
Well, there's no doubt that that Pennzoil Panther car is dialed in. It is fast, it has been, and even though Ward is leading, he is catching him slowly but surely.
Well, Jeff Ward is sponsored by the Miami Heat this weekend, but right now he's going to feel some heat from Sam Hornish.
It's not going to be too long because Hornish is... every lap he gains just a little bit. He's a little over a second behind him right now, but he cuts about a 10th off of that every time he goes by. Salazar still running in 3rd place, about 3 seconds back. Dari is now into 4th, and Barron has dropped back to 5th position with DeFerrin running in 6th, Buell in 7th, Giaffoni and Castroneves and Sharp rounding out the top 10.
Working now on lap 52, so 1/2 of the laps have been under the yellow this afternoon.
And all of a sudden, Ward has picked up the pace, and he's running almost the same speed as Sam Hornish. So Hornish is not catching him nearly as quickly as he was there the first couple of laps after that yellow flag.
At the age of 22, Sam Hornish became the youngest driver to win an IndyCar National Championship lap. Realistically, he's only been out of go-karts about 3 or 4 years. He and Sarah Fisher were great combatants in karts. They both grew up in Ohio in the Midwest.
That was Gilles DeFerrin we were looking at there just a second ago. He's now in 6th spot. So he's trying to catch up with Alex Barron, but so far Barron doing a very nice job hanging on to that 5th position.
Here's Rick Treadway being interviewed.
I'm okay. Everything's great. I'm looking forward to going to Phoenix. Really happy. Airlink, Treadway Hubbard, Chevy, Firestone, they did a great job preparing the car. The car felt awesome until I tried to pass Alonso Jr. There was a gust of wind and the wind coming off his...
They're being taken off the wing.
Yes, this racetrack is probably one of the trickiest as far, other than Indianapolis. Indianapolis, the wind plays a big factor. But the wind blows here almost all the time. Because you're so close to the ocean, because of the sea breeze, wind blows out of that south-southwest almost all the time. And it's usually pretty gusty. So it makes this one of the most treacherous racetracks as far as the wind goes that these guys run on.
Well, Hornish is still turning in laps faster than Jeff Ward, about 1.5 miles faster the last lap.
Well, he gains a little bit and then he loses a little bit. He's been any place from 9/10 of a second to 1.2 seconds behind Jeff Ward for the last 8 or 10 laps. And here we see Al Unser Jr. back on the racetrack. Whatever his problem was, he got it fixed, but it took him 10 laps to do it. So he's 10 laps down in the race.
So Al Unser, who spent part of the winter here in Florida with a personal trainer, getting in shape. He says he's really in the best shape he's been in years. Lost almost 30 pounds, but you can see him falling back even more.
Yeah, but if you have seen him, he definitely is in the best shape I've seen him in for many, many years. He's very, very fit. He seems to be more determined than he ever has been for a long time. So this could be his year, but not today.
But the leader continues to be Jeff Ward. He's milked 57, almost 58 laps out of this fuel tank. But even with these yellow flag laps, he has to be at the very edge of that window.
Well, I don't know. He might be able to go another 15 laps.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's going to be a roll of the dice right now as we're working on lap 59, and Ward continues to lead the youngster, but Hornish is closing.
There it is then. The ex-motocross champion leads the Homestead Miami Grand Prix, and what a sight that is as well. So Hornish is trying to track him down, but Jeff Ward there holding a brilliant lead in this race at the moment. But pretty soon, Johnny Kane here in the studio. They've got to be concerned about fuel. They've been out for a little while, haven't they now?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, he's obviously out of sequence. He moved up through the pit stops there. He obviously stayed out on the circuit, and Hornish is really the leader of the race at the moment.
Christopher, they're certainly having a bit of trouble with the wind out there, but it seems to have settled down just a fraction now. There's, that turn 4 has been a major problem throughout this event. There's been a 40-mile-an-hour wind at one point during the course of the day. It's down to about 20-25 mile an hour now, but still these cars are having big trouble with it, aren't they?
Yes, they are, and they're there. I mean, sorry,
in.
I was a little distracted as well. That is extremely
and again, look
close.
at this.
But I mean, Hornish really feels able to do whatever he wants. Look, he gave everybody a surprise. There are 1 or 2 people running at the back of this field who are running a lot slower than the front boys, and you are going to get that from time to time.
Okay, well, you're right there. And Hornish, I think to pick us back up to speed very quickly, he's just taken the lead, of course, we expected that. But can I just bring Johnny back in and say, this man is putting this vehicle all over this track, everywhere. He's all over the track. He knows exactly where he wants to be. And you said it earlier on, he's not afraid to turn the wheel.
No, he's very confident in the car. You know, change of direction on an oval is very important. You know, you have the confidence in the car to move the wheel, a lot and not worry about the rear end letting go. And, he's not scared of it at all.
Well, we're watching Sam Hornish at the moment, who is the race leader here. And I've got to say, the young man, he is, of course, the champion from last year. He is the pole sitter here in Miami, and as you can see, the way he's getting around this Homestead racetrack is absolutely superb. There's no one getting near to him. Is there anything going to stop him today, Johnny, with this kind of form?
Well, if you look at it at the moment, you would say no. Really looks pretty comfortable, running quicker than anyone else, and the car looks excellent.
Sam Hornish Jr. it is then that leads the race. Jeff Ward, who's out of sequence, will be pitting at any moment now. Let's go back to the track for our live commentary then and see what the Americans have got to say about this phenomena, Sam Hornish.
You can see here Sam Hornish. Look at this. He comes out on the outside. They're getting that lap traffic. Ward was being very cautious, and he just blew by on the outside. And then going down the back straightaway, he pulled inside of those other 2 guys and went around both of them.
Another look.
Look how close he was, though. He was very close. That was a huge chance he took on the outside there to pass those guys. And Ward is going to have to make a pit stop under green. Tough break. What a tough break for him. He made it up to about 64 laps. That's a long way without a pit stop, but now then it's probably going to cost him, and all he took was fuel, didn't take tires, so.
But he needed that yellow flag to make that pit strategy work.
It just never did happen, so a tough break for him. He stretched it longer than anybody else. It's one chance they took, it just didn't work out, though.
Well, that will move Salazar up to second, Dari to third, Alex Barron is now fourth, Jill DeFerrin is fifth, Robbie Buell is sixth, Giafoni is now up to seventh in the Hollywood car, Sharp is eighth, Castro-Neves is ninth, and Buddy Lazier is now in 10th position. As you ride along with Scott Sharp.
He's right behind Giafoni there. They've caught some slower cars. Giafoni trying to get to the inside. Sharp's going to follow him through. Oh.
Went by Billy Rowe in the number 81 machine.
Now then, if he follows him, looks like Sharp might try to go on the outside. Uh-oh.
Number 20.
That's Noda. That's Hideki Noda. Looks like he's blowing the engine in that thing. A lot of smoke coming out of there. And he's got down to the inside of the racetrack, but I believe this will bring out another caution.
This is the rookie from Osaka, Japan, and that should bring out another yellow, as you indicated. Is there fire in there, perhaps?
There's fire in there. You can see the fire up there in the intake. And just think what a terrible break this is.
In the cockpit.
Yeah, a terrible break for Jeff Ward. 3 laps. If this had come 3 laps earlier, he could have made that stop under the yellow. Now he's a lap behind.
Well, he's trying to push the car out of the way so they can get a fire extinguisher to it. You can see that thick black smoke as he quickly bails out with the help of the safety crew.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to be in any huge hurry, but that thing has to be pretty hot. He's trying to get all the radios and all the paraphernalia unhooked so he can get out of that car. But a lot of smoke, a lot of fire, but you could definitely see the flames because you can see them through the intake back there. So that thing is blown up big time.
Our 4th yellow of the afternoon.
Now lap 67, he did that coming off of turn number 2 down the back straightaway. and he appears to be okay. He was kind of looking down, but he appears to be okay. Meanwhile, though, Jeff Ward had lost a lap just
you think the Ganassi team is talking to themselves right now? Boy, if we just stayed out for another couple of laps.
Well, what will happen here is everybody's going to be coming into the pit area. Jeff Ward will not. He has made his pit stop. So when they get back on the racetrack, he will be behind the pace car. Because of the rules in the Indy Racing League, he'll be able to pass the pace car, go around, and get in on the back of the lead lap. That is, if everybody makes a pit stop, which it appears they will.
Well, here comes your leader, to the attention of John Barnes and his crew on the Pennzoil Panther team. The second pit stop of the day for the defending champion of this Miami Grand Prix, as all the leaders, in fact almost the entire field, comes in for the stop.
Takes a little water right there. You can see that he's all business. Just took one drink, tires are on, and he's back out already.
And there's the A.J. Foyt crew. That is Eliseo Salazar in the Bank of Chile entry.
Yeah, Dare beat him out, as did several other cars. It looked like he did not get a very good pit stop at all. So that's a tough break for Eliseo Salazar.
So there is the number 4 car, Sam Hornish, out and back in the lead of the Grand Prix of Miami.
As again at the Homestead Miami Speedway for the opening race of the 2002 IRL Series, and we are under our 5th caution, believe it or not, of today's race. Sam Hornish leads, we're on board with him at the moment. Dare is up in the 2nd place, Eliseo Salazar is in 3rd place, and Gilles de Ferran is there in 4th place. The 5th yellow flag of the day is because of Hideaki Noda, who was on fire just a moment ago. Let's cross back then to our live commentators at trackside.
On the restarts, he learned it very, very quickly. We'll see if he can pull off another one and leave these guys behind.
Well, with the exception of pit stops, he's been out in front most of the race.
Yes, he has.
73 laps now complete, a 200-lap event on this 1.5-mile oval, 300 miles here. The green will be unfurled the next time by. You can see the breeze as you go by the flags on the backstretch. The breeze gusting up to 20 miles an hour off the ocean.
And Jeff Ward did get his lap back, so he is on the lead lap, but he's at the end of this big, long line of cars, so he's got a long way to go to get back up front.
The A.J. Foyt teammates are running 2nd and 3rd, Dare and Salazar.
And Dare, again, gets a terrific start on the outside, and it looked like Salazar. No, that's Salazar who got the great start.
No, that's Dare. That's Dare.
You're right.
The Harris car. And here comes de Ferran on the outside of Salazar. That's the battle right there for 3rd spot. And de Ferran goes on by for 3rd position.
Well, de Ferran has run a very smart race. He hasn't been up front challenging for the lead, but he has been right in the top 5 all day long. And every time he gets close to somebody that he's quicker than, he makes quick work of him, and then he just kind of settles in. He doesn't really make any daring moves on anybody, as Sam Hornish has done several times during this race.
Well, that may be the difference in age. Sam's 22 years old. De Ferran's a little older.
Well, de Ferran's a very, very smart guy. He runs this race knowing that the checkered flag, 200 laps, is the only time that pays to lead the lap. So, you know, if he's got a good chance, if he's running much faster than a guy, he's going to go around him. If he's not, he's content to run there in 3rd place until he goes in and makes a pit stop, makes the adjustments so that he can make the pass and make it very easily.
De Ferran and Salazar could almost walk to work. They live down here in the Miami area.
Yeah, several of these drivers live down here. They love the Miami area. And obviously the weather is good down here, so you can't blame them a whole lot.
Eddie Cheever in practice said this is like Formula One. You work hard during the day and you can really have fun at night. Right now, Eddie Cheever's not having a whole lot of fun because he is a spectator after early contact with his young teammate Thomas Scheckter.
And that's Salazar right there. He's right behind DeFerrin. After DeFerrin got around him, he's not lost any ground. He's just hung on right on his rear wing, trying to move up. Now here we take a look at Jeff Waters. He's trying to move his way back up the top. He's back in 14th position right now, and he's trying.
Al Unsuri's going by.
Down
to the 7 car.
Down to the inside. He is making some progress, but he's got a lot of cars in front of him because of that missed opportunity or a bad time pit stop, whatever you want to call it. But he had to make a pit stop. He was about out of fuel, but he has moved back up and is running quick again.
Yeah, and you're riding along with Al Unser Jr. now, who again is in 22nd position, but Al is about 10 laps off the pace.